Hi there, I'm Steve Glaudini, producing artistic director for Moonlight Stage Productions, and joining me today is a conversation with wardrobe and makeup department. So why don't we start with Kathleen and introduce yourselves and tell us how long you've been part of the Moonlight magic.
Well, I'm Kathleen Kenna. I am a designer for the makeup department for the Moonlight, and I think I've been there actually like 30 years. It's been a hot minute.
Renetta?
I'm Renetta. I am one of the costumers for Moonlight, and I've been there, officially working as a costume designer for the last 10 years, but I grew up doing theater with Moonlight and costume assisting before I went off to college, and yeah, been there for a long time.
Great. Jonatan?
This is going to be my first year with Moonlight.
Well, you were there last year.
I only did Hunchback last year. This is my full season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Shayla?
Hi, I'm Shayla. I've been with Moonlight for 2 years now.
Wonderful.
And I do wigs and makeup.
Yay! So, in this crazy time, I mean, it's unprecedented what we're facing, but it's so weird because this would have been our 40th anniversary, and we were so excited to add a fifth show, which, believe me, I tracked. It didn't rain one day in May that American in Paris would have played, and we were so nervous about the rain, and it ended up being this beautiful weather. But each of you, why don't you share one of your favorite shows that you helped create? Anybody can go whenever they feel like. Just one of those special shows that takes a place in your heart.
I think my favorite show I worked on last year was definitely Victor Victoria.
Yeah.
That was fun. I did wigs and costumes for that, so that was a lot of fun.
That was a crazy one backstage for sure. You guys had a lot of work.
Well, so did wardrobe, because people forget that musical's almost 30 years old, and that was the original wardrobe package. So
yeah, that was amazing.
It had aged, but it was still so beautiful under those lights. And
yeah, we're always very grateful at Moonlight that there's what we call the 40-foot rule, where the audience is not right up close, so they can't see the patches and things that we have to do to make these costumes last through the run of a show.
Yeah. Very true. How about you, Kathleen?
Gosh, there's so many shows to choose from, but in recent times, I think one of my favorite shows was Mary Poppins. I got to do designs for all of the toys, those characters and everything, as well as I got to make Steve a personal mustache.
That looked just like David Tomlinson in the movie. It was exactly like it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do. I really enjoy making facial hair and really helping the artist to come into their character with that, along with the costumes and the wigs and everything else, of course.
Yeah. How about you, Jonatan?
Mine is either a tie between Victor Victoria or the producers. They're both kind of like backstage hectic shows, which I like being kept on my toes and just exciting.
Well, the producers literally vomited backstage at the Moonlight. There was every inch of that theater had either a wig or wardrobe or a huge set piece or a puppet or you name it. I mean, every inch of that building was utilized for that show. Well, Kathleen and I have a long history because she drew the schooner on my stomach every performance of South Pacific in 1998 by hand. You made a stencil, but that was our little bonding moment. Was that she got to put on my tattoos, and it was so much fun. And you can probably share, Kathleen, what it was like in what we call the old days. Before the renovation happened, 11 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, the whole backstage area was open. There were trees growing back there. Spiders would join us for makeup every night. I mean, it was just really, it was interesting. It was more space, than we have a lot of space now, but it's now sort of confined to rooms and hallways and everything, and everybody was sort of just out there together. We did have one mobile home in the back that we did use for principal artists, but for the most part, everybody just did their makeup in the rough, and they did their costume changes actually in where they stored the costumes underneath the stage, and it was very different from what it is today. Definitely.
It was certainly rustic. I just remember the picnic tables with the long mirrors and the big lights on
And the
top.
lights. Yeah.
And then you'd have your chair, and if you had your appointment, like I remember when you would paint Eric Anderson as the MC in Cabaret every night, he'd have his time, and it was truly, it was so fun and so rustic. But to have this building with air conditioning, because the old Moonlight was brutal. I mean, when it was hot, everybody was hot. No way.
Yeah, those costume trailers that were behind the stage there, just soaked in the sun all day long, and they had like one little window that popped open, and yeah, it was brutal.
50 degrees in that room. I remember that. It was just crazy. Well, while we're on makeup, so here's a funny thing. I remember the first time I produced The Wizard of Oz, and I hired a makeup designer. And it was really one of the first times I had hired a specific makeup designer. And the guy said, it was very interesting. He said, it's so funny. You pay so much attention to the wardrobe and the shoes, but we don't give the same attention to what the audience is looking at, is the face. And the way that, like when you're doing a show like Titanic, how important it was that beard that you made for Norman Large looked like Captain E.J. Smith, because this is a historical character. That the wig that Peter made and the mustache you made for me let me become J. Bruce Ismay. So do you want to talk about what's each of your process is? Say like when you find out what the show is, and then what a typical day is when you get to the theater on a show day. Kind of walk us through what you do.
Typical show day for me is I get there, I get my makeup table all set up. We've already got, this is once we get it all figured out. The first couple days is a little like mayhem, but once we have it figured out, we have our appointments, we have our makeup and everything set up, we have people coming in at scheduled times, or we go into their rooms depending upon if they're a principal artist or chorus, and we just have everything set up already. But prior to that, beforehand, when you were talking about like maybe getting ready for what it is that we're going to do, I would pull research, especially if they are historical characters, to see what they look like, so that we can be as accurate as possible to portray that to the audience. And then if there's facial hair involved, I start to make facial hair. In fact, like for Ragtime this year, I was already getting started on just making a bunch of different colors of facial hair that would be used, because that particular show, being a period show, and the characters, the people play a lot of different characters, so we're going to be switching off to try to give them an appearance of a different person for each of those characters. And so we start to think about those, and we work with stage management to get like a breakdown of who is going to play who, which characters need what to wear for every single one of those characters. And so we do that, and then we have all of that obviously set up when we go into the room to get them ready to get into makeup.
And they don't realize too just how quick it is, like using Ragtime for an example, is that, someone may be a person of the immigrant, ensemble, and then they run off stage and they have to become JP Morgan.
Yes.
And then become an immigrant again, and then become JP Morgan again. And that's just in the opening number. Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite things with you, Kathleen, was when we did Les Mis, and you stayed on, so you physically, with makeup and beard and wig, aged Jean Valjean throughout the show. Yes. And so you were there, you were his right hand man, and some of that stuff you had what, minute and a half?
just moments. And that's while he's getting other people, like costumes might be there to try to get him into costumes. So you're really just working with everybody to get that actor back on stage, especially with quick change. You might have 5 people around him, you know, just to get them back onto the stage in time. And I know, it's just working backstage is really a group effort. You know, like they say, teamwork makes the dream work. It's definitely true, because we really need to work as a team and to do it every day in the same way, just as if it was choreographed, you know, for the audience. But backstage, we need to also have it choreographed within ourselves to make sure that nothing goes wrong. And if something does go wrong, we can get that fixed and get the person out there.
And typically your team is generally the first ones at the theater on a show day, because if you're maintaining the wigs, or that's because you know when the appointments are going to become of putting the wigs on, doing the makeup. We're actually going to have a conversation with Peter, so because I figured he's done so many once, and there's so many wig stories. But you know, you guys are the frontline lovers. I mean, you're the ones that create the characters. Now, kind of with you, Renetta, as we said, a lot of times we get packages, but there have been opportunities that have been thrilling. And if those of you who watching don't realize that this woman right here is the one who created Ursula, that fabulous costume, and Kathleen, that fabulous makeup design, and Peter, the fabulous wig. But she also designed and created all of Norma Desmond's wardrobe in Sunset Boulevard. And in my opinion, that was what set our production between any other ones that I saw, because Renetta, your work was absolutely stunning. Absolutely. I mean, you made Norma Desmond, you know, come to life in that classic period wardrobe. So kind of talk about—
really fun period.
It is a fun period. But I know you're, you know, usually a part of a team, but, you know, we kind of get the wardrobe in early. So you guys,
our work is primarily done before the show opens. So generally what happens when we do get a package of costumes from either a national tour or the Broadway set or wherever it comes from, our first job is unpacking everything and just seeing what we have. They usually come in big wardrobe crates or sometimes big boxes. Some are more organized than others. So our first thing we always look for is what they call the costume Bible, which is a folder with pictures usually of the costumes as they're supposed to be put together and for what characters they're supposed to go to. Because, you know, you get a box with 58 pairs of pants and you're kind of like, who do these all go to? So it's very handy when the set comes with that Bible. If it doesn't, then we look up a lot of reference pictures from past productions. We do a lot of research to try to figure out who wears what when. And we rely a lot on the stage manager to give us a list of which actors are playing which characters and which scenes they need to change back and forth. So once we have all the costumes out, we start sorting them by actor. And figuring out, okay, this person plays this role, they need to have an outfit that looks like this. We measure that out to see if that's even a physical possibility for the actor that we have. If it is, great. If it's not, then we look for other options to try to figure out how we can get a similar look using first what they have sent. And then if we can't find anything in that package that they sent, then we go to Moonlight's own storehouse and grab, you know, what we can to approximate it. So it's a long process before the show opens to get all that organized, because a lot of times with these big ensemble shows, as you were saying, there are characters that play, or actors that play, you know, 5, 6, up to 10 different roles as far as the amount of costumes that they need. So then we organize fittings to have each actor come in and they try on each outfit, make sure everything works. Generally, we pin everything and write extensive notes about what needs to be adjusted. And then we spend a good couple weeks doing the alterations to get everything ready and able to be on stage and worn. And then we also have to take into account the quick changes because regular clothes aren't meant to be pulled on and off as quick as they often need to be on stage. So there's a lot of rigging things that goes on either by Velcro or snaps or magnets or zippers that have to be strong enough to hold up for the run of a show. So yeah, all that is done before the show. By the time the show is opening, usually the costume designer's role is, you know, we're walking away and hoping that everything holds together, and obviously on call if things go horribly wrong and we need to come in and fix something. But we leave it in the trusting hands of our dressers and wardrobe crew and pray for the best.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, just what you and Kathleen have talked about. I mean, our audience, I'm sure, don't even think about that. They just come and they enjoy the magic of what's on stage, and they, you know, no one really thinks about. I kept saying when I interviewed Jamie Torcellini, I said we could have sold tickets just to show what happened during Springtime for Hitler.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
just the costume alone and scenery changes. And you know, with the puppets and the mirror, and I mean, it was it's one of the hardest shows to pull off well. And you know, that's one of my favorite rehearsals, is that after the Sitz Pro, we dedicate that afternoon of our first dress rehearsal, which is normally in the evening, to a quick change rehearsal. So it gives the dressers an opportunity and the actors an opportunity to talk through. And then a lot of times that's even without hair and makeup. You know, we have to just get the clothes ready before we can dial in a whole other, you know, level. So as someone who has been, that does that backstage, Shayla and Jonatan, what's the biggest challenge for you guys?
I think it's just that first starting, just talking to the actor, seeing like how comfortable they are with like having someone else changing them. Because some of them, it's like their first time having someone else helping them with their quick change. And other than that, I just figuring out what we're doing first, like as in like, are we taking off his shirt first? And I think that's, after completing those, it should be.
Yeah, it's like the choreography between like the actor and then whoever, if you're changing like wigs and stuff, if you're like whoever's doing on the wig and then the costumer too. So it's like getting all of those people like together and like on the same page and in the same time frame every night.
That's but also like what you guys are so good at is that in midst of doing this incredibly difficult thing in a short amount of time, is that you have to make sure the actor stays focused. So that means you all need to be calming, and you know you can't be panicked, because then you put that panic into the actor, who, you know, and that's what I love about you guys, is that you are so professional and you keep the peace. You know, you don't add any drama to it. You just keep the actors focused, and you do the work, and you do it professionally and quickly, and you get them out there until you have to do it all over again. You know, so
Yeah.
I mean, because that's really important. It is truly your guys' laser focus and the kindness that you give, because we all know actors can be dramatic, you know, so, and you deal with, you know, the vanity of an actor, because you're the ones that are putting their clothes on and are wigging them and painting their face. So that's why I think you guys are such a tremendous team. And, you know, and that's also my favorite place to hang out, right? Don't come into that little sit on the director's chair and just, you know, it's because you guys are just so fun, and it's just, you know, it's really, it's a great energy. And, you know, like what Renetta said, the time when the wardrobe team tends to go home, that's when you guys really are 100% on, because you're all about performances. We got through the rehearsals, you took your notes, we did hopefully all the work that we needed to get to opening night. So, I mean, it's like Mary Poppins, I want to say, Renetta, that was a package, because a lot of times we work with directors who will then look at a package and say, why is there no wardrobe for Let's Go Fly a Kite? And then that's when you step
Yeah,
in.
I mean, the costumer's main collaborator is the director, and the director often comes in, you know, with a vision of what they want, and sometimes that matches the package we're getting, and sometimes it doesn't. And so, you know, we have a balancing act trying to take what we have available and take the director's vision and try to, you know, mingle those two together and make it cohesive.
Well,
So,
I've been lucky enough with you, Renetta, is that when I was directing Sweeney Todd, and we knew we were going with a younger Mrs. Lovett and Sweeney with Betts and Robert, that you helped create that sexier, youthful, not the music hall Mrs. Lovett that we're used to from, you know, the Angela Lansbury, who's equally brilliant, but you just brought a new level of
yeah, it was a fun edge I get to put on
Yeah.
those characters that sometimes isn't there. So yeah, that was a fun opportunity.
And then, of course, you know, when I made it known that I had intended to have a male play Ursula, so it was going to be a character in drag, you know, you had all these wonderful ideas about how can I make him use his tentacles as a boa and then be able to flap him, you know, and you just came up with all these fabulous, what was it, pool tubes? What are they called?
Pool noodles, yeah,
Noodles.
lots of pool noodles.
And you made
There's
it
a weightlifter belt
Yeah.
with microphone head things and pool noodles, and there were all sorts of things in there.
And you also knew Randy, and you know that he sweats. So instead of having to paint his body, you built his, you know, into the costume. That way he only needed to be painted his face. And not, because we all know how he sweats. And if that was painted.
Well, and to make it washable too. So there had to be the layer underneath that was fully removable and washable, because obviously we couldn't wash all the sequins and craziness that went on top. So trying to figure out, that was an engineering feat for sure, but
For sure.
it worked.
It did. And I smile because, you know, now with the city, you know, we at least can go back to the office. And, you know, it's been a little rough, I'm not going to lie. You know, we would be going in next week or tomorrow for our final weekend of Something Rotten. You know, this coming Monday would have been First Equity for Cinderella. And so, you know, we're there and we're looking at the weather's gorgeous and I'm looking at an empty amphitheater, you know, and it's kind of heartbreaking. We're all doing the right thing. We're doing the healthy and safe thing. How are you all doing? Is everyone keeping sane through this?
Yeah.
We'll start.
Are most of you, can you go to work or is everybody telecommuting like Kathleen?
Yeah, I'm telecommuting. My company has not. Maybe mid-July, they're thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's very interesting because once we're told we can gather, you know, we can do things. We can be smart. I've had several people reach out that would love to do a concert, and, you know, because we can easily socially distance our audience, you know, but what people forget is the actors. You can't social distance the actors. And they were holding out for maybe Kinky Boots in September. I'm like, how can you put them 6 feet apart and singing, you know? I mean, I can safely do the audience, but we can't do that with the actors. So, but I can have a married couple come. You know, John Vaughn's like, hey, Steve, I'll slap I do on you and Betts, you know, and, you know, because 25% of the Moonlight's 500 people, you know, and I think because we're outside, that I think people would be more, not as anxious not to come back to Moonlight. But I just want to make sure you guys are all doing terrific. I want to thank you so much for your time and give us a little insight as to the backstage and what your processes are and everything. Is there anything else you'd like to give as advice to anybody who'd like to get into in costuming or in the area of makeup? Is there any advice?
Just do it.
Just practice it. And remember, if you're doing stage makeup, it's not street makeup. You would be so surprised to come backstage and see these people in makeup. Nobody's going to walk out of the backstage with their stage makeup on. It's so heavy. And that's so that the audience beyond the first few rows is able to, you know, sort of distinguish the features of a person so that they don't flatten out with the lights.
And people don't think about that, you know? I mean, I'll never forget your makeup design for Sweeney Todd, just because there were so many shadows and all the, you know, the deep set circles, and just to give it that creepy feel, because there were so many shadows in the lights, and it just was gorgeous. But no one's going to go out to the Vista Village pub in their Sweeney Todd makeup.
No. Maybe Halloween.
How about you, Renetta? How about if someone wants to get involved with wardrobe?
You know, there's so many opportunities to the best thing I would say is to really try to volunteer somewhere, see if it's something you're even interested in, the stress of it, there's few paid positions in costuming, so the best way to really see if you're even interested is maybe just volunteer for a show and maybe do dressing or whatever first, just to see if it's something you're interested in. And you know, once you get a show or two under your belt, you've got more experience than most people out there, so and then, you know, it's a good chance to get in to the system that way.
Yeah, so kind of just echo what Shayla said, just do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Baptism by fire, you know, and just if it's something you can do and it doesn't stress you out, or you have what it takes, then continue on.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything anybody wants to say in parting before we say our goodbye?
I'm just sorry that we're missing this season, and thank you so much, Steve, for just being at the helm.
Yeah.
I guess.
You guys are all incredible, and it just keep safe and stay healthy, and we'll see each other soon, I hope. Thank you so much for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.